Did any of you see the Channel 5 documentary? It was on, I think, last Friday, maybe Saturday night, probably Friday, about Jim Davidson. It's all about the fact that he's not on the mainstream TV anymore and he can't get a gig anymore on TV. And in fact, there's many places he can't get a gig out there in the UK. Many theatres won't let him appear because he's still stuck in a 70s and 80s time warp. I don't mind that because I'm stuck in the same time warp. Don't know if you've seen it. It was interesting. I've got to say I enjoyed it. I really did. If you've not watched it, it's worth revisiting. Have a look on Catch Up. I think you might like it. It's an hour and a half long, but they have loads of ads in there. It's probably only about 55, 60 minutes in all. And it's a good watch. I think there's a chance it's been made by his own people, which would be strange. The only reason I say that is a couple of his cohorts, well, 3 of his cohorts are the main people speaking on his behalf on the show, and they're all people he works with. Obviously, if they're cohorts, what am I talking about? There's a few people speaking on the show, but the main 3 are people he works with. 2 women that he presents with on his Ustream channel. A bloke that stands in for him when he's away. A black gentleman, I can't say I know his name, but I do know his face. I've seen him on Ustream before, but I didn't know him before seeing him on Ustream. I think he's a radio broadcaster by trade, but I don't know who he is. And also his manager, Jim's manager. And it was pretty good, and he was pretty honest, I felt. I mean, he was saying, obviously, he's had lots of marriages, been with lots of women, but he said, I'm not asking for sympathy, it's all down to me. He said, I've treated most all of the women I've been with badly. He said, but I was a young kid of 20, 21, 22. I started to earn absolutely shed loads of money. I'm in a Rolls Royce, I've got a speedboat, I'm appearing all over the UK. I often can't or don't get home at night. There's lots of temptation out there. He said not only is the drink and drugs and everything else, but there's women at every turn. He said, and I partook. I shouldn't have done, but I did. But he's talking about loads of things. I mean, it's weird. I actually read something 2 or 3 days before the show aired, I think, about a story that happened in a theatre. I thought recently, but it was a good few years ago now, where someone in the theatre, they wheeled lots of people in wheelchairs to the front row in one of the theatres there when he was performing. And the full front row is people on wheelchairs, well, in front of the front row because they're in wheelchairs. He said, but there weren't people in wheelchairs that are in wheelchairs just because they had a bad leg or a bad hip or couldn't walk. He said many of them were, how do I say it without offending? I'll just say it because I don't mean it to offend. Maybe backward, many of them. So many of them are talking, they're making gestures, they've got involuntary movements and whatever else. He says, I come on to do my show, and a lot of my show is interaction with the front row or two, taking the mic back and two and a bit of banter. Well, number one, he says, I can't be taking the mic off people in wheelchairs, and I wouldn't want to. He said, but many of them were not the full ticket. He said, so how could I banter with them anyway? He said, many of them were talking amongst themselves and moving around and whatever else. He said, half the time I'm trying to tell jokes and I can't hear myself think. He said, and I'm thinking, I can't do the show with them all there. He said, so I come off and I tell the person that's sort of running the audience, look, you need to move all the wheelchairs further on to the back of the theatre or away. He said, because I can't work as it is. Oh, no, we can't do that. He said, well, you need to. I can't do my show. He said, oh, no, we're not prepared to do it. He said, well, in that case, I'm not prepared to go on. So he went home. And the next day in the press, it's all, Jim Davidson does this to it. And he said, the press can make any story to their own ends and make it look or sound however they want to. And it made me look really, really bad. He said, but I wasn't. I've done nothing wrong. He said, and that's how the press has been with many things. He said, I did the Generation Game, did a good few years on there. Nobody thought I'd be any good at it. I took to it like a duck to water and loved it. In the end, it was like I was a press release. I decided to move on and do something else, but the Beeb had actually fired me. Said, we don't want you anymore. He said, they put DVDs out about the show more recently. He said, and the DVDs feature Brucey, as they would, and old Shut That Door Larry, no problem at all. He said, I did 4 years more than Larry. I'm not on the videos. It's like I've been airbrushed away. He said, and all I do is tell jokes. He said, all I do is try to make people laugh. I mean, everyone's got this thing in their head that is very, very offensive. You know, with the police, it was Nick. I didn't realise his brother was a policeman. I'm giving all the show away here, folks. You don't need to watch it. He said, and then he had his mate, Chalky. Was it Chalky White? Who spoke in an unusual voice. All right, he over-egged the pudding. It's not necessarily what a black person would speak, but that was the joke, and it was in the 70s. And I don't think he meant it as being offensive, and I don't think people took it as being offensive. They spoke to a couple of people on the show, 2 or 3 people, black people, and they said, we used to love the character. We loved it. you couldn't do it now, but we loved it. And I thought, well, why couldn't you do it now? You know, if he's not offensive, if he's not racist, and he's not knocking anybody, everybody knows it's a caricature, it's made up. And as I think I did in a past video about 6 or 8 months ago when the channel first started, I read something about Jim. I think his best friend growing up was a black lad. They were inseparable. He's not got a racist bone in his body from what I can see, but people have decided that is what he is. You know, and because people decide that, you get cancelled in this modern world of ours, which to me is wrong. Anyway, that's just me. That was just my thoughts. But I watched it and I tried to have a balanced view of the things. And I thought to myself, why on earth has it been binned? Why on earth, especially at end of pay shows, why are there some pairs that won't let him perform? It's like anything else, I would suggest. If somebody wants to see an act, you let them see it. If there's folks that don't want to see it, or that might go in and be offended, they walk out. They might have lost their money, they might even get the money back, but give them the choice. Don't ban a person from performing and earning a living. No wonder he's had to go to his own YouTube channel. And I just thought, I felt sorry for the fella. I really did. But that's just me. Maybe I'm out of order. But, you know, I felt sorry for the guy. And I looked and he was with Jimmy Jones, Jimmy James? Jimmy Jones, I think it is. He's having a pint with him. Old comedian, he loved him. He's always remained close to him. Was it Jethro who died a while since? He went and gave a lovely speech at Jethro's eulogy, funeral, whatever it may have been. I mentioned that on the channel as well. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. He loved the bones of the guy. He's somebody, old Mr. Davidson, that's extremely loyal. He looks after his friends. I think it might have been Jethro or somebody like that. That was told a few years ago that he couldn't perform with Jim at one of Jim's shows. Somebody said he can't perform. If you have him on, then you can't do your show or what, something like that. He said he can't perform. He said, yeah, he can't perform. Jim said, I'll tell you who can perform. And he said, you were already doing one night a week. They said you can't do shows with me. You're doing 3 nights or something similar to that. That's how he tackled that. He said, nobody tells me who can perform and can't perform with me on my show, so we give the guy extra nights. I like that. That's the kind of bloke I like. Bit of loyalty. It's lost in this world at the moment, but I like it. So anyway, Jim Davidson, no, he does the odd thing wrong, says the odd thing wrong. I think I did another thing about him about 3 months ago. He said something wrong to me. I can't remember what it was about, but I mentioned it. But on the whole, nothing against Jim, nothing against him at all. And if you get a chance, folks, even though I've just told you loads of bits about the show, there's loads I've not told you, give it a watch. I think you might like it.